Welcome back. My guests today are Representative Stephen Thayn from District 11 as a member of the House of Representatives, and Mr. Paul Venable, who is the chairman of the Idaho Constitution Party. We've been talking about a pilot program that Representative Thayn and Representative Durst are going to present this legislative session. Tell us a little bit more about how you've talked to Superintendent Tom Luna about this program, and you have his support?
Yes, Elizabeth. He's supportive of the concept. He needed to look over the legislation. There's some details, but he said there are details that could be worked out. So we're moving ahead with the blessing of the superintendent. We still have to finalize the legislation. But we have been shopping it around to other people, and the response has been one of, this is interesting. We haven't thought about this before, even though it's very similar to what we're doing already. So we haven't gotten any negativism as far as opposition, and we've showed it to the teachers union and the school administrators and different people.
What about the classrooms? Have you actually gone in and talked to the teachers?
Well, I think Paul has had some experience with that.
Actually, I did. Before the local elections, a couple of the high schools in the area were having discussion panels with the political parties. I was invited. I recall, because Steve and I have discussed this over some time, I was promoting this idea to the students. And in government classes composed pretty much of seniors, I asked them how they would consider or how they'd feel about having the opportunity to graduate early, or to have to be able to finish school in 10 years instead of 12. Almost universally, all of the seniors seemed to like that idea. In fact, many of them, there were a few of them that were only taking 1 or 2 classes just so they could get through their senior year. There was actually one who said they wouldn't like the idea, but I would say, but
well, especially for kids that are going on to medical school or law school, or ones that are going to be in the system for quite some time. It seems to me that helps them get back into the working environment a little bit faster.
And another concern that people have had is, okay, students are going to finish in less time. In fact, one of the representatives a couple of years ago, when I was trying this idea out, he said, well, I don't think that's a good idea because you'd have kids graduating 15, 16 years old. And I thought, wow, when was the last time someone had an education reform proposal that was, the problem was the kids would learn too fast.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
But what to do about it is a legitimate question. As part of the legislation, we talk about concurrent enrollment, having community college classes within the high school so that a student can graduate from the K-12 system, but still be in a home environment, still take college-level classes in a high school setting, but they wouldn't be high school students per se.
You know, Elizabeth, there's something else that this does, and that is it offers students and their families educational freedom. So in many cases, you might have a student that will want to take advanced courses or college-level, junior college courses afterwards, but you may also have students that might want to move on and work in the family business or pursue some other activities. The idea is that there's an educational freedom that hasn't been there before.
And there's one other aspect, and that's how it benefits the teachers. And there's 2 ways that it can benefit the teachers. The first is to increase the number of satisfied students. The more satisfied students you have, the less stress the teachers will have, less discipline problems they'll have. The second thing is secondary teachers could get a master's degree in content and teach half high school and half college level classes.
Yes.
So it could be a career path, so they could maybe make some extra money or something besides going into administration, which is the case right now.
How would that work, Stephen? So if they could teach college classes, they would teach it to them while they're in their class, and the student still gets that college credit?
Well, you can just look at what's going on today. If you have a master's degree at Bora High School, you can be a a teacher at College of Western Idaho and teach college-level classes to whoever takes them.
Sure.
But that teacher could also be a high school teacher at the same time. So we're doing that basically right now.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds very interesting, and we'll be following this. You plan to introduce this early during the session?
I do. Representative Durst and I plan on doing that fairly early so people can comment on it. In fact, we're sending it out to anybody who wants to see it now.
Wonderful. And how can people get a copy of that if they would like to? Can they email you or? They
can email me. They go to the legislative website, how to contact legislators, and my name, my phone number, email address are all there.
And maybe we'll try and post it on our website too. We have at FYIdaho.com. We'll make that available to people as well.
That'd be great.
Now you sit on the Health and Welfare Committee, is that correct?
Yes, I do.
And I know that you and I have talked about health and welfare a number of times and the entitlement system in our state and our country. And so you have some thoughts on entitlement reform. I'd like to talk a little bit about that if you don't mind. I'd like to have your views on entitlements, and both of your views on entitlements and what your thoughts are.
Would love to do that. That's, some people wonder why I would take on such a controversial issue. Of course, I'm addressing public education, so I don't know if it's really that controversial. But what I see is if we don't do something with the entitlement system, and we'll explain more about that later, we think that the country is really entering into some difficult times. And both the Republican and the Democrat approach to entitlements is to basically spend more money, have government programs and spend more money. The Democrats might spend more, but there's really not much change. And what we're seeing is those entitlement programs need to be reformed.
Well, and basically we know that many of these entitlement programs are well-intended, but they have consequences that they're not, unintended consequences that can be very detrimental to people. And so I know that that's one of the things that we've talked about as well, that good intentions aren't enough to really justify some of the programs that we have. And of course, nobody wants you to cut their program. So how are you going to address this? I know you want to reform things, but give us some examples of entitlements and entitlement programs, and perhaps some that you think might even overlap or might be unnecessary.
Well, what we're talking about is a new approach to entitlements altogether. And I think we need to go through some of the numbers so people really recognize how serious this problem is. And one reason we're having this conversation today is I want other politicians and policymakers to recognize that we can talk about entitlements. We can have a reasonable discussion about entitlements. We all know there's problems with the entitlement system. And until we talk about the faults of the entitlement system and try to improve them and be honest about them, we're really not going to make any headway on that.
Okay. Give us an example of some of these entitlement programs.
We're all pretty much familiar with Medicare, Medicaid, housing subsidies, food stamps. These are programs that have become almost a part of the current American culture. But because of that, there is also something else that needs to be understood, and that is that there are only, at this point, entitlements take up a large percentage of the budget. Health, education, and welfare take up, 85% of the Idaho state budget and 65% of the federal budget.
Well, when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about how this reform can help our situation. I'm Elizabeth Allan Hodge. The program is FYIdaho.